Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everyone. The Latinos of Impact webinar series is back and celebrating its 1 year anniversary. I'm glad to welcome each of you to the first webinar, a Women History Month event focused to unleashing women's true potential to achieve the career path they want and work for. My name is Suheili Fonseca. I'm a software engineer manager for the multi-cloud SaaS platform in IBM. I have a background in engineering with specializations in software, communication, signal processing, pattern recognition, and practice and professional ethics. I also worked in development and leadership roles in automation, DevOps, full stack development, cloud computing, SaaS, open source, and testing. I'm a proud Boricua and Latina, and I'm passionate about empowering others and enabling resources for growing as professionals. And that's why I'm so happy to be here with each of you. First of all, thank you, IBM, We Are Half Human, and Latinos of Impact for making today's event possible. Everyone, have a look at the chat located at the right side of the live stream screen. Please introduce yourself, and we would love to hear where you're from. Today, I am honored to be in the company of exceptional women with such an inspiring leadership journey. First, we have Kalin Sanchez. Kalin is the Vice President of TLS Global Logo Offerings and Service Planning, leading a worldwide team of IBM service planners, offering leaders, and a premium support specialist. She also served as the Tucson and Phoenix site leader and Arizona and New Mexico state leader. Kalin led IBM Worldwide System Lab Services and Technical Universities, was the engineering leader for the development of IBM's enterprise storage system, and led the IBM Storage Program Management team to deliver the storage portfolio. Kalin is involved in both the state and local community. She currently serves as a leader and board member in several councils and organizations. In 2018, she was the Hispanic Businesswoman of the Year by the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Second, we have Mila Velasquez Callison. Mila is a Senior Vice President for the Service Delivery Solution at Synchrony. She leads Synchrony's operation for credit card and statement delivery to cardholder, as well as bill payment and deposit processing. Mila's career growth and expertise are the result of critical experiences in a variety of functions and levels, such as Information Management Leadership Program Coordinator, Inventory and Production Analyst, Supplier Integration Manager for the Canadian business, Adverse Action Manager in the credit organization, more than 10 years in marketing as Integration Manager, Program Architecture Leader, and Marketing Platform Leaders. Mila is originally from Venezuela, where she graduated with a bachelor's in information engineering with a minor in quality and productivity, also earning a degree in system management. Last but not least, we have Dr. Zaira Nazario. Dr. Zaira is a quantum theorist and Director of Science and Technology at the Office of the Director of IBM Research. Zaira has a vast experience with roles such as research scientist for IBM, advisor for the U.S. Department of Defense and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, theoretical physicist at the Max Planck Institute for the Physics of Complex Systems in Dresden, Germany, and more. Dr. Nazario earned her PhD in theoretical condensed matter physics from the Stanford University, where she focused on quantum phase transition, uncovering the physics of strongly correlated. Wow, I feel empowered already and hope you feel the same. And at the end of the webinar, I hope you take the advice that you get in here and make it happen in your real life. It's great to have this strong and powerful Latina woman today. And now today's focus will be in unleashing your true potential, overcoming challenges, and rise together. Let's begin with understanding our speakers' personal experiences and the challenges that we face today as women. Mila, Can you share with attendees what inspired you to pursue a career in technology and what challenges you have faced as a woman in this field?
Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this conversation. Now, to answer your question, what drove me to pursue a career in technology, it was getting a job. Going to college in the late 80s in Venezuela, IT fields were the fastest way to get a job. And all the Latinos will understand. That was our focus, that was our goal. I was especially good with the STEM subjects in high school, so there was no brainer there. My first choice was to go to med school, and I actually attended a year of med school, but I was desperate to get a job again. So waiting 10 years to achieve that goal, to get a job. So I gave it a go. I applied for an IT degree, engineering in information and systems management. I started with the system management first, and I loved it. I loved it so much, and that's what I continue to study. I will leave behind the challenges that I have based on I was one of the few ones in those big classrooms full of male engineers. And I will jump immediately to the fact that I graduated in Venezuela and came to the US. So my challenges were beyond just being a woman. I needed to also compete with American universities degrees, people that had American universities degrees. I also had have an accent. So all the jobs that I applied for, even in tech companies, were never on a tech function. So I've always found ways to showcase my skills and rise to the occasion. But at the beginning, it was dismissive opinions. I was passed, my ideas were passed. So basically, I had to always work harder for people to notice my skills and what I could bring to the company.
Thank you for sharing your story, Mila. Kalin, it would be great to also hear your perspective on what inspired you to pursue your career and the challenges that you have faced.
Sure. And again, thank you for allowing me to be here as well. I would say what inspired me in the career of technology. So, one, my father is a PhD research scientist in soil and water. So it was like not a question of whether or not I was going to get the right kind of degree. It was like, which one do you choose? Number two, number of PhD scientists in my family that worked on fundamental research projects around the US in particular. Three, my experience working as an engineer or a code writer, a software engineer for Sandia National Laboratories as well as Los Alamos. I had started writing code with Sandia when I was 15, going on 16 years of age. And then fourth, a disaster that occurred in 1986 when I was in elementary school. I lived in Florida. I looked to the sky and understood the unfortunate situation with the crash of the Challenger space shuttle. That, of course, upset me quite a bit, as well as I'm sure most of everyone who was watching it. And for me, it was just a disappointment because I thought that I believed in sciences, I believed in engineering. My family had put me in that position, though for me to see it as an unfortunate situation, but also create sweet pain out of something tough. I decided to learn about it and capture articles, etc., about it. And I later found out the scientists and technologists that worked in partnership with NASA to basically understand what occurred on the flight recorder were actually from IBM Tucson facility. So they were the engineers and scientists that were able to abstract basically bits of data off of fragments of media that had fallen to the bottom of the ocean. Now, what was interesting of that is I thought to myself, I want to learn who those people are, what they do. And that what I would say is the pivoted point where after that point, um, similar to Mila, I loved science, I loved math. So I thought, hey, so if people at school going into middle school after that I needed to be seen as the brain, I was totally fine with that because I wanted to actually grow my skills for value. And I felt that that would be the way. What I didn't know is my father had wanted to do research in the Colorado River Basin here in the United States, and it brought me to Arizona. So I was able to eventually meet these awesome rock star scientists years ago that worked on basically giving us an understanding of what occurred in the final moments of the Challenger space mission and the learnings based on that. So that whole story connected me not only to Arizona, but it also connected me to IBM as a whole. Quickly, just to say, because you asked me about the challenges I face. It's interesting because I said that I thought to coach myself to change my mindset. Instead of seeing things as challenges, I see them as opportunities. So, and what I mean by that is instead of being shy and sitting in a conference room in the back of the room, I make sure I always sit at the table. I do have a voice. I share my ideas, but I have my voice with value that will bring all of us collectively forward. And then the third part is I feel that I had to learn to be thick-skinned. And I see that more as less as a challenge, but more an opportunity that I can grow and evolve and become a stronger executive. For example, on the third, as a young executive, I was a newly appointed director, like weeks in. We had a failure for an enterprise device. I was the engineering leader for. I was requested to fly to the East Coast and give in a boardroom to the CIO, to the CEO, a briefing about what occurred and why we failed. And upon me going into the room, there were some comments about like, oh, interesting. So IBM sends us an 11-year-old. First of all, I thought that's awesome because I guess I look young, though I felt it kind of a shame, like they didn't think much of me. And in that moment, I thought, make it a moment of opportunity. So I stood out front. I said, hello, my name is Colleen Sanchez, and I'm going to be the best 11-year-old you've ever met. And then I proceeded to speak on the topic for almost like 4 hours. But what's great about that is like, just take a moment, breathe deep, and realize that not all challenges are necessarily bad, but also they could be good for future learning of evolution. So with that, that's my story. Thank you for asking.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your story, Colleen. We as women, even after all our efforts to be capable and know and fight for our rights, don't have an easy path, but that doesn't imply it's impossible. And as Colleen said, our challenges are our opportunities. I love it that. So thank you. We also learn from our experiences and through other people's experiences. So, Saida, what is one mistake you witness leaders making more frequently than others? And what will you recommend to change that pattern?
Um, so I think that rather than mistakes that I have witnessed, I would rather talk about what are things that I consider fundamental for good leadership that I've learned by observing others. I would say that there's always a lot of room to improve when it comes to clear, straightforward communication. Right? And perhaps it's the tendency of people to avoid saying things that other people may not like or avoiding conflict, but I find that it's often better to leave no ambiguity. Right? I think that leadership is more successful when there is clarity of vision, clarity of direction and priorities, when there's very clear feedback and good communication of management plans. That goes a long way to avoid conflicts in groups, to avoid wasted resources or even like rumors drifting around. Um, Another thing is to fall in the tendency of too much leadership from the top versus team leadership. It's a balance, and there are some things that do need that direction from the top, but many are born from the teams themselves, right? Where you can work with them to draw out ideas and organize them, but listening to what they feel is important and what is not. Otherwise, it's a lot harder for the teams to have the motivation and the enthusiasm and feel ownership. Of course, I mean, like that requires trust in the teams that you put together so that you leave the decision making to them and you can step back and let them succeed. Another thing to keep in mind is that once you have assigned an owner, every single intervention tends to remove leadership and respect from that owner. So as leaders, we also need to be careful about that. Then you find sometimes some leaders that are very focused on their own achievements and what they want to do and how they want to ascend or being recognized, that they forget that it's not about them, it's about the teams. So, giving the opportunity to the teams to shine can say as much or more about you as a leader as what work you have under your name. And then the last thing that I would mention is a tendency to focus a lot on, or maybe too much on hitting metrics and revenue targets to the extent that you forget purpose. And don't get me wrong, I mean, like no business succeeds without hitting targets. But more often than not, it's also that sense of purpose, of the importance of what you're working for as a cause that really pulls teams through challenging times and that motivates them and makes them push themselves to new heights. So those are a few things that I have observed.
Thank you for that perspective, Sarah, and I'm confident that that response will inspire leaders in this call to be agents of change. All right, so in IBM we have the Institute of Business Value that is called also like the acronym is IBB. That the IBB conducted a report for women in leadership to describe why the perception outspaced the pipeline. According to that study, gender parity seems decades away. Kelleen, what can we do to act now and retain our women talent and promote a supportive work environment?
So I'll first say that I usually have to be careful with questions like this because I'm extremely passionate. So I want to make sure that I'm being thoughtful or pragmatic when I re-highlight things. And much of this is taking a step back and looking at the simplicity. First, create and cultivate a supportive workplace for all. So everyone feels that they are included, whether you're a woman, man, any of one of us. So we all feel included. And that for me, I thought was as part of the reason why I chose IBM. IBM is a place where no one really cares where the next best idea is going to come from, just that we are able to synthesize on the opportunity. And so with that, I believe that I work within the IBM company that cultivates and creates a supportive workplace for all. Now, in some cases, things may be different than that, and we're always looking to improve, etc. Though I believe it is a great big candy store, and I just have to remind myself, just don't eat all the treats because I like candy a lot. The second is please encourage mentorship for all because everyone can learn from anyone and it's so important. Like I learn every day from like even just peer, not only peer mentorships or mentorships with higher ups, but also having coffee talks with friends and people that I respect and know. So I think mentorship should be pervasive in that we all have something to learn from each other. So every exchange can be an opportunity to learn. And it's important to see that. The other element, especially when I was looking to recruit and bring on women into engineering and also the technology space, is making sure that we recognize as leadership that we offer flexible work arrangements. So one thing that I felt was really important is to have a discussion about flexibility so that you can take care of your family as well as your work life and see that as a full continuity element. And so I wanted to say making sure to have open dialogue about flexible workplaces. And I truly believe that we have much to learn there. Though at the same time, I think that we're on the right path forward to ensure that we have a much more flexible ecosystem, especially after our learnings through the pandemic. Then the item which is purely fundamental, especially as a leader, and I look at ensuring there is specific pay equity for women. It is quite interesting that I look at the masses of women and it just in my organization and how I, as a leader, have to inspire other leaders to make really thoughtful decisions for value. At the same time, be thoughtful about how you do that and what approach you decide to use. The next is always ensure proper skills and training. Skills are the asset that you bring into the marketplace for everyone and for use. And that's the thing that it allows you to obtain your own brand return on investment. So what is good from IBM is there's continuous focus on skill development, etc. And honestly, IBM or non-IBM, skills matter. And it's what drives the evolution of us all being human. And then the next element is use, for those who are IBMers and are part of the audience, use our IBM conduct guidelines. Follow the policies and procedures to prevent situations of discrimination and harassment. And make sure that you go based on that first thing I mentioned a moment ago. No one knows where the next best idea is going to come from. So be open to all.
Thank you for that perspective, Colleen. And as you will say it, the sense of belonging is very important. And we also need to do what we could do to create that empowering and supporting environment for our women talent. Now that we know about the challenges of today that women in the workforce face, let's discuss what we can do to overcome those challenges and rise together. Mila, can you share what factors contribute positively to women's development in our organizations and the industry?
Yes, I think that I could repeat some of the things that Colleen already say. I was just like, I got that, I got that. I agree totally with it. So she mentioned the support and she mentioned the skills and training development opportunities. I'm gonna go beyond to what I mentioned before when I joined, competing with degrees. We as leaders can recognize when somebody has the passion, the drive, the talent. And we can see that and say that person is going to be really good leader in the future. We just need to give them the opportunities, the training, and the development that they need, including the mentoring. Overall for women and overall for the Latin community, women's in the Latin community, we are used to wear so many hats. That's what there are so many Latinas entrepreneurs, because we not only have talents, skills, and drive, but we are naturally creative innovators. So we always find ways to make things possible. So there is no different in the tech fields. When you find someone that you can see the future leader represented in their talent, let's work on there. Let's give them that opportunity. The other piece, Colleen already mentioned, flexibility. Overall, to those ones that are caregivers, women overall are very disciplined for growth. And when they feel appreciated and understood, and that flexibility allows it, we give it all. The last piece that I haven't heard yet is the intentional listening to women voices. There are still places where women voices are diminished because of bias. So being aware of this is just the first step. Listening to their opinions, ideas, and contributions intentionally creates an environment where we feel safe and confident to speak. Just think about it. Any person, any gender, any human, no matter their age, when they feel dismissed, they recluse themselves from the conversation. And I'm not going to say anything else. So we are the losers because we will miss all those ideas that were never told in the discussion.
Thank you, Mila. And we should do that, promote those actions that are contributing right now and could begin contributing to a positive change, and creating that safe environment that you mentioned is key on that. As a follow up on the topic, and since having allies is very beneficial during career progression, Saira, I have a question for you. You support a senior vice president and world thought leader. Can you give us an example on how Dario support you and your goals, and what are some best practices other leaders can do and should implement?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I appreciate the most is he gives me freedom and flexibility. Right? And I would say that yes, it's true, I do support SVP, but more importantly, we support each other. It's a team, and it feels like that every single day. I have space to explore work subjects that I'm interested in. I know that if I find a project or an opportunity or something that I want to do, that all I have to do is say it, and he'll support me and he will help. Um, I think, or at least I hope, that that is common of many managers. It should be. And in terms of best practices for other leaders, I would say I would echo what Mila said. Listen. Listening is important to good leadership. It's important to any relationship in general, and then help people grow. And as they grow, give opportunities for visibility and for exposure to other people and to talk in front of other people, right? And understand that as they advance as leaders, when they help leaders that as they continue to progress, they help their own people to advance. I think that is important.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Saira, and thank you, Dario, for being the support leader that Saira deserves to continue being the such inspiring woman that she is. And as Saira said, this is a teamwork effort. So if you're not doing that today, like supporting other people, start doing that today. Now, the next question should not be a surprise and applies to different industry and sector. IBM recently announced the new senior vice presidents, and the discrepancy from male to female was apparent. We know we have a pipeline problem. Kathleen, what other challenges do you see, and what can we do to overcome them?
Yeah, and forgive me, I position this as opportunities. So with regards to the pipeline, no question, there's a pipeline problem. Though at the same time, I think, in my humble opinion, there is opportunity to enable how to source through these challenges. So one of the opportunities enable visibility for value with skills. So one of the key lessons that I've had in my career is, if let's say I wanted to work in partnership in the marketplace with enterprise clients or whomever, and is to grow my skill and to understand deeply what our conversation is so I can enable some value. So it just would be important to ensure that there are really, really smart women that we work with, and enabling them consistently a platform to share their valuable skills and ensure that they feel that their voice should be heard, similar to what was just said about listening, and also that you have been heard. So that these individuals feel confident or have the confidence to have a voice based on the discussion that we had about building up a collective, just like a relationship that can extend to an ecosystem. If you're known for sharing based on your depth of skill and that you do for value, I think that that's beneficial. The next is just a simple aspect of opening up our networks to enable cross mentorships, like mentioned before, to learn from others. Like, I have to constantly remind myself that sometimes you have your own networks and you want to do things like, right now I'm the chair for the United Way in Southern Arizona, and I work with Women United. And I start to realize that I've closed my network. There's only a few women in the room. Why can't there be more? So bring others in with you So you can open up your networks to become a connector, and you become a neural network that allows us to grow to feed that pipeline for the future. Because it shouldn't just be the few that have the experience. I have to ask myself or remind myself, why not the many? The other aspect is, bias and discrimination can be significant barrier to promotions. So it is important that we remind ourselves as leaders to provide proper training to new managers and to employees, and to hold individuals accountable for not the best behavior. Whether discriminatory behavior is very specific in nature and people can be held accountable. But sometimes there is this bias that is internal and not necessarily on the table. And that's something we consistently have to work through. And then the final thing just to mention is I work with the technology leadership team in IBM, and right now we're auditing code, microcode, firmware with internal bias, because we think about, well, who's written this code for the many, many years? Does it have the thoughtfulness of having a woman's brain think through the unintended consequences of what that means? So even though it won't necessarily immediately address our pipeline problem, I really believe these things will help our ecosystem to feed the pipeline for the future.
Thank you for raising your voice on the topic. Saira, it will also be great to hear from you. And I will just learn about, like Kalin, use opportunities instead of challenges. What opportunities we can follow to overcome the barriers that we might encounter.
So I agree with everything that Kalin mentioned. She gave a great list of those are pretty much the things that I would point out, right? Like improving there requires really action and commitment to recruitment, to hiring, to promotion strategies that foster that gender equality, particularly early on in the career, right? Because it's obvious and we all know it, but the problem is that if you have less women being promoted to management early on in the career, then there's fewer to promote at the next level, and then even fewer at the next, and so on. So a lot of those things that Kalin was mentioning around, like that commitment and setting goals and holding leaders accountable for those goals are opportunities to improve there. Training, very important as well. Kalin mentioned those opportunities for professional development and networking. That's very important to build the foundations to gain the skills and opportunities to demonstrate leadership. Another thing that both Mila and Kalin mentioned early on during this conversation was the importance of coaching, mentorship, and sponsorship. The three of them are very important. Then I think like this is related to networking, which is I feel like one thing that might be affecting also these numbers is that women also tend to get less access to the people and the opportunities that accelerate careers, right? Or things like participating in meaningful meetings, especially women of color, which are the most underrepresented group, right? Like they're 20% of the US population, about like 3% only of C-suite positions. So those are opportunities there in terms of not just networking, but like ones that matter, the ones that make a difference. That was something that I learned too late in my career. I would say the value of networking and having access to the right people. And then one other thing that I would mention that is an interesting fact to me is that as they advance in their careers, we tend to see more women going into or focusing on staff roles as opposed to advancing in line roles, meaning that they tend to focus on support to the organization as opposed to positions that have responsibility over profit and loss or that have more focus on core operations. And that has implications when it comes to advancing for top jobs. So that is also an area that I feel there's more opportunity there.
Thank you for that perspective, Sarah. And it is true, we have a pipeline problem, and that would be not only in IBM, that could be in different industry and sectors. But we should not focus on what is wrong or what could be better. We should focus on what we could do to change it. Now, in the previous questions, we discussed how we can overcome barriers and rise together. Now, let's focus on how the people here on the call can contribute in meaningful ways and what each of you can do to achieve a supportive, balanced work environment and success in your career. Kalin, in your experience, what are effective ways to promote diversity and inclusion in the tech industry?
I'm going to take it more personal. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and every night I pray and light candles that she'll want to go into technology. And so I decided when she was, in elementary school, she's now in middle school, to be part of locally, this is US specific, so forgive me for this, the Girl Scouts. And so I became a Girl Scout leader and realized that there are things like she-tech and technology elements where you can actually write code in Lego Mindstorms to get like a little monkey to move across the table, things like that. I know that's very boutique-like or focused on my family life, but it was important because now she has interest in sciences and she's opening her mind for the possibilities. So I think that as a whole, once children, at least here in the US, I can say this, are about to enter, especially girls, are about to enter fifth grade, we lose them out of science, the STEM fields, because they self-choose to do something different. I'm not saying that's true for everyone. I'm just saying that that's much of what I read. So I would say to grow the future for technology is I'm starting to really spend time to devote my hours or my hours of treasures in that way to focus on young females who may have interest and catch them before they decide to self-doubt themselves or leave the STEM field. And so I want to catch them. And so that's really what I've been doing to focus on diversity and inclusion, especially for the benefit of young girls in STEM.
Thank you for sharing your experience and advice, Kalin, and I hope your daughter becomes the next leader of the tomorrow. Mila, it will also be great to hear your perspective on this topic about effective ways to promote diversity and inclusion.
Yes, I will actually add to what Colleen say because I have been mentored to several daughters of friends of mine that have decided to go into technology, and I have been the mentor through applying for college and even finding a job. They always call me and ask me questions, the situation, etc. But I think that is all around the strong intention that we have, not only in our communities, being role models and speaking out and like Colleen say, identifying that talent, but also at work. Seek diverse talent when you are hiring. Ensure your slate of candidates is diverse. If it is not, just go back to the recruitment step and ask for diverse talent because you need to hear the variety of thought process that is not only women, men, is different backgrounds and experiences to ensure that you are actually looking at the big picture. In Synchrony, we have something that is it. I think that is our excellent practice. Every time that I have an opening role, I immediately contact my networks, my diversity networks, and tell them I have an opening role. Not only I share with them what I'm looking for, but I give them those tidbits of information of this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's not just a resume. Send me someone that you trust that is a future leader. And we create those connections and ensure that those openings are shared and available to all employees at all levels, and that they can reach out to leaders and hiring managers to ask questions to see if they are qualified for it. So we share the world. Instead of just posting the job, we ensure that it gets communicated and shared enterprise-wide for anybody that wants to take that initiative.
Thank you for sharing your experience and advice, Mila. And it's good to learn what Synchrony is doing so that we can learn from that as well. And I'm confident both yours and Colleen's perspective will be very helpful for the people here on the call to know what they could do for diversity, inclusion, and equity initiative. Now let's talk about workplace inequality, which is still a problem we face today. Mila, how can we address the gender pay gap and other forms of workplace inequality in the technology sector?
Although I am not an expert on HR, I have never worked for HR, I think that it's incredibly important for us to stay connected with our HR organization as a strategic partner that we willingly share in periodic market salary reviews that we do company-wide. We should look for any discrepancies that might exist either for women, gender, or any other otherwise diversity. But more importantly, what we need to do is be aware as leaders and do something about it. It's not just doing the review, it's actually acting on it. Knowing is important, but fixing the gaps is critical. And we need to continue to make changes now to ensure that women's in the future, Colleen's daughter, don't have to be fighting these fights in the years that come ahead and any future generations. So that partnership to me is one of the primary things that we need to continue to work on.
Thank you for sharing those valuable actions, Mila. And Saida, it will also be good and well appreciated if you could share your perspective on how we can address that gender pay gap in any form of workplace inequality.
Yeah, besides what Mila said, which are, great ways to make progress there, I go back to setting goals and holding ourselves accountable to those goals, right? To me, it makes a big difference because it's much easier to make and measure progress when you have clear goals in place. And that goes hand in hand with something that Mila mentioned, which is transparency. That's critical in disclosing the gender and race metrics to all employees so that we know where we are in terms of achieving those goals that we set for our own organizations. So, just adding to what Mila already mentioned.
Thank you for sharing that, Saida. And goals are very important indeed, as you said. And I'm sure these actions that you both said will be what people here on the call can use to be agents of change, as we said before. Now we are getting close to the end of the webinar, and it will be fantastic if we can hear all the perspective of all the speakers we have here on the call and the advice that you will give to your younger self and inspire leaders to achieve success in the career. Let's begin with you, Mila.
This is what I don't discriminate when building my network. I connect with a variety of people at all level functions, and overall, I look for someone that has something that I can learn from. I also, someone that I admire, that they might be doing something, I go directly and try to meet them and understand more of their experience and how they got there and how they got so good at something that I want to be good at. So my network is very diverse, very, very diverse. It continues to evolve as I grow and evolve myself. But that's the basics, is you look for what you want to fill your life with.
Thank you, Mila. What's your advice, Aida?
I would have to go to the same. I would say investing in building a strong network matters. That's what I would tell myself. Look, when I was younger, I was very idealistic and I thought that just skills and the quality of the work and results, that was all that mattered. I learned too late that that is not enough, that without a good professional network, opportunities are much less. I would say personally, I could have benefited from guidance to advance my career early on, from sponsorship. That's so important. Sponsorship, showing me the doors to go through early on. From leaders outside of my direct management chain, helping me by bringing me, for example, challenging assignments or just knowing me and my work enough to have faith in me and helping with promotions. All of that is the value of networks. I didn't see it until too late, so that's the advice that I would give to my younger self.
Thank you, Zaira. And what's your input on this topic, Colleen?
I will not make it long, free therapy. Um, uh, Honestly, for me, it was don't self-doubt, don't suffer from imposter syndrome. You have to realize that you have to build the confidence. You do have skills, you do rock, um, and just make sure you have the confidence to achieve. And from a women leader perspective, I urge everyone who's part of this audience, take a leadership position, take a seat at the table. Don't just have a voice, use it and insist on being heard. Network with others, as all of the comments have been made here. Bring friends, bring others into your networks, and engage and learn from each other. And I really think that we will be building a foundation for the future to increase pipelines and to help people who are not as confident, which in early years I was not. I was very shy, to have the confidence to achieve and be part of that pipeline.
Thank you, Colleen. And this has been great. I like the advice. I love it. And I encourage each of the people in the call to follow it. And to wrap it up, you could be the person you want to be. So act now. Do what you need to do today. So the conversation today was great. So I'm sure people are inspired and have a couple of questions. So let's proceed with a live Q&A session. Let me look at the questions that we have in here. For the first question from the attendees on the call, can any of the panelists share their experience empowering peers? How to empower them on the day-to-day, especially if the person tends to be shy? I will leave the forum open to any of you to answer.
I can go first. I have introvert leaders in my teams. What I do is I identify their strength and try to mentor them without telling them, hey, you need to be more upfront and you need to speak up. I try to utilize and give them confidence on those strengths they have and given opportunities for them to utilize those strengths in a environment where they can be heard. So they also feel the feedback that others are giving them, and they don't think, like your own children. They might think, no, you're my mom. You think that I'm perfect. I put them in perfect positions to utilize their strengths so they can feel confidence on it. So that's the way that I do it.
And just to
That's
follow on,
great.
Mila, to mention, and it goes back to what was said earlier by Zaira. It's like sponsorship.
Yeah.
Like I was shy, and it was basically an ally who decided to do what you have done or express to identify me as being shy, and he gave me the platform to have a voice. Like, oh, Colleen, come sit by me. Oh, Colleen, what do you think about this? That then allowed me to build the confidence that, oh, yeah, he's allowing me to have this pathway forward. And so I just wanted to echo what you had just said, Mila, and also mention sponsorship is so imperative, especially for people who are shy, because you have to build that confidence.
Yeah, I think like that's really important too about like what do you think about this? This is something that I do a lot. It's like trying to get their opinion so they know that they have a voice, and not only that, they're directing also technical work as we go along. I need your help with this. Can you help make this happen? If there are every time there are opportunities to present the work. The opportunities for them is for them to shine and have that visibility and them present and bring in those opportunities. That's something that I find that they value a lot as well.
That's great.
That's great. Thank you very much. So another question we have in here, industry research shows women are over mentoring and under sponsor. What can we do today to make sure we are effectively sponsoring women to move into the roles they are ready for?
I will go because I
Anyone?
experienced that recently. One of the things, again, intention that I do also is whenever I met a woman, like I just say, we can mentor all day around. But what do you do next? How do you know and grab that name of that person that you just met that you think that is great and ensure that others are also knowing that that person is great? Yeah, I'm constant every time that I meet someone that I feel that, oh, you will be good in this team. I immediately make a contact and a connection with that team to tell them, let me introduce you so and let you know I think that she will be good for this type of job or she will be great for your organization. So it's not only that's the sponsorship part that you take that name with you everywhere you go and you continue talking to others the wonderful things that you think about this person.
Thank you, Mila. Any other thoughts on the question?
I think
All
Mila said it
right.
great. I think that's the important thing, right? Like it's every time that you see an opportunity, it's remembering. Yeah, I met this person that I know this person and she's very talented. There's a lot of talent. It's opportunities that are less than the talent, and it's having that and opening doors for others.
Yeah.
That is well said. We need to empower others so that they can shine as well. Thank you for that. All right, another question. Is there an appetite to mirror some other IBM programs? And this could also apply to Synchrony. So, Synchrony programs that focus on underrepresented groups, such as women Latinas. I see that IBM, and again, we can expand it to Synchrony, has taken steps in a couple of years past. Just a thought. Any thoughts or comments on that question?
So something that I was a part of earlier in my career within IBM was what they called a network for Latinas, La Red. So it was like just a network of women who were diverse, technical, non-technical, shared services, finance, legal, etc. It was a great forum for starting to have discussions, coffee talks, getting to a point of interest. And so I think a lot of times that we should consider something that, yet again, everything old is new again, especially when things end up dying on the vine. So that's just something, and forgive me, Mila, I was just going IBM myopic for a moment.
Yes. No, Synchrony does the same. We have a great diverse programs within the business, and we also focus on underrepresented um, uh, employees or groups of people. And women is one of those top ones. Overall, on the management, high management, and executive levels, we want to support the growth, not only the pipeline, but also the growth of our management and talent that we can actually train and develop to become those next leaders. I always tell everybody, I'm not going to be here all the time. I need someone to come and take this. And of course, I would love for that to be a Latina woman that follow my steps. So we continue to work very, very closely with these programs and looking at the goals. It's not just, oh, let's do this. This is a great thing to do. Set those goals and meet them.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I feel we have time for one more question. It says, I would like to learn if any of the speakers here have any particular mentors or sponsors who really help each of you here on the call to progress in your career. What did they do and how were they supported?
Oh,
Any
many.
thoughts?
Many. I started my career as an analyst. My first job here in the US was as a receptionist. So I have gone all the way through my career to get where I am today. And I have many, many people that I couldn't have done this without that big family that I have. I call them my family. They become my friends, and they have done it in multiple ways. Like I mentioned before, I know I have a female mentor out there. She probably is listening. That is always have my name in her lips when she's talking to people and saying this person this great experience. You have to keep her in mind in the futures. I have male mentors that have say, hey, speak up. Don't be so shy. Don't sit in the second row. Sit here in the front, and will actually intentionally ask me questions that they know to bring those ideas in. So those are just two examples of people that has helped me get where I am today. And that's why now I have to pay that forward and learn from their practices and apply them all.
Same. I think like my experience have been similar. Right? People that I've worked with that have involved me in different projects, particularly with people outside of, the group that I used to work with, or even the topic that I used to work with, and those have been incredibly helpful, because it just like it helps you and interact and work with different people. And to the extent that you show those people the value of your work every time you have the chance, those then become your allies as well. And so those are then even more people that continue to open opportunities for you later on. So, very similar to what Mila had said.
And
Thank
I would
you.
just say similar to both. I mean, like with Dalio Sanchez, who's a retired general manager from X Series, I still stay connected with him through the SHIP program, so Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. We're part of that ecosystem, and like Mila said, is like we're a family. So we come together, we share thoughts, ideas, and he holds me accountable to mentoring more, bringing others into my network. I hold him accountable. Like we have our own set of KPIs, but we're friends. And it's like, hey, what have you done for our community lately? But, and that's really what it's about, like with regards to that. And then last week I met with a prior EVP, Nick D'Onofrio, who is my mentor for a number of years, and he still remains. And I actually see him, and I call him, and he makes fun of me for this, a life coach. Like, I was like, your experience, yeah, it's with IBM, but you're on all these other boards. You were an EVP, you led IBM research for a time. Like, I always look to seek advice from him or thoughts about everything, even stuff that is not IBM, which he reminds me constantly that you spend in work 80% of your life. So take it personally. And what's great about that is those relationships, even though those two people graduated or retired from IBM, they're still part of my ecosystem because they're part of my familia. And I don't want to ever lose that. And that's my life mentors.
Oh, that's great. And I love like what each of you said, and we are family and we are stronger together. So thank you so much, Mila, Helene, and Saida. And every great thing, similar to life, need to come to an end. So I would like to conclude by thanking the three inspiring Latina women that we had today because of sharing their stories and advice, and also because of taking the time to be here with each of you. I would also like to thank IBM and We Are How Human for working on the planning and execution of the webinar. And also, I would like to thank Familia at IBM and Latinos of Impact for all the support and the hard work to make this webinar possible. Finally, but not least, thank you to each of you because of being here supporting in this webinar. On your way, you will find many barriers, obstacles, and people that will not believe in you. However, you are who you work for and not what other people think about you. So it is up to you to decide whether to stop before these difficulties or to move forward even more strongly and with the support of those who truly believe in you and want to see you shine. So don't ever feel afraid to fight for what you want and never let a negative thoughts invade your mind. As I always say, you own the canvas of your life and you can paint on it as much as you want. We hope this webinar prepares and enables you to unleash your true potential and empower you to achieve the desired career path that you have. The replay for this event will be available on the channel. Please also be in the lookout for the next webinar. We'll be sharing the information soon, and it will also be available on the off-air image on this channel. Love yourself, treat each other with dignity and respect, know that you are worth it, and don't stop until you are where you want to be. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.